I'm going to show you in this video how you can get past the fear of what will happen in the future. Now, fear is an interesting emotion. I hear a lot of things about how it alerts us to the presence of danger or to the threat of harm. However, I am still yet to hear about someone dying from public speaking or from failure, which are two of the most common fears. There are two common acronyms I like using for fear, which I think are very fitting here. False evidence appearing real, or false expectations about reality. Now, before we go into this a little bit more, we are only born with two fears: a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. The rest are all manufactured in the mind, and as you will come to realize throughout this video. Now, I believe that underlying fears at the unconscious level are the most destructive to your success. Consciously, we might not think we have any fears about being successful or making more money or having a fit and healthy body or having a loving, intimate relationship. Our unconscious mind, runs 95% of us. So the remaining 5% that consciously thinks we don't have any fear is more likely than not inaccurate, meaning we are unaware or unconscious to these fears. This is why you may have heard me say that we are the only ones ever holding ourselves back. Now, let's dive into this a little bit more to actually understand fear. This part is important. Now, fear in terms of a biochemical reaction is a natural emotion and a survival mechanism. When we confront a perceived threat, our bodies respond in a specific way. Physical reactions to this biochemical reaction of fear include sweating, increased heart rate, high adrenaline levels that make us, extremely alert and switched on. And the physical response is also known as the fight or flight response, with which your body then prepares to either enter combat or to run away. This biochemical reaction is likely an evolutionary development and an automatic response critical to survival. This is the response that will make you jump out of the way of a moving bus, and this biochemical reaction is the one that protects us, not the emotional response of fear itself. On the other hand, the emotional response of fear is different for everyone. Fear, like all emotions, are chemical reactions in the brain. Now, let me say this for clarity, and I'm not going to go into all of the science and the details here, but a chemical reaction is different to a biochemical reaction. Previously, when I mentioned the fight or flight and jumping out of the way of a bus, I was talking about biochemical, but here we are talking about chemical. Now, stick with me. Because fear involves some of the same chemical reactions in our brains that positive emotions like happiness and excitement do, feeling fear under certain circumstances can be seen as fun, like watching scary or suspenseful movies. Some people are adrenaline seekers, thriving on extreme sports and other fear-inducing thrill situations. So can you see how fear is actually serving an individual in these situations? Fear brings excitement and enjoyment into their life. And so this is how fear can manifest into self-sabotage. If things are going well and there's no fun or excitement in your life, you might unconsciously sabotage it and burn things to the ground to get that fear-based excitement back into your life. Now, on the other hand, if you have a negative reaction to the feeling of fear, you'll try to avoid that fear and avoid the fear-inducing situations at all costs. And this is also causing self-sabotage, because when you want or desire something, you go after it. Then the closer you actually get to it, you fear you won't be able to handle it when it's achieved. So you will ruin everything, whether that's by wrecking your chances at getting a promotion, destroying a relationship, or spending all of the money in your business. Then unconsciously we think, I'll just save myself from all of the pain, all of the embarrassment, and all of the disappointment if I were to mess up. So I'll just sabotage everything before it even gets to that point. In the end, like most things, self-sabotage is trying to protect you from getting hurt or letting yourself down. And if you've watched previous videos of mine, you'd know that your mind stores past bad or negative experiences and puts glasses on of fear over the thoughts, the sights, the sounds, the feelings as you view the present and the future. Now, negatively charged past memories create negatively charged future imaginations or illusions. And these negative charges of fear are only lopsided and imbalanced perceptions of any given event. Now, everything is perfectly balanced in this universe. It's universal law, the law of polarity. So, a negatively charged memory of a person, of an event, of a circumstance is created when you only are aware of the negatives and unaware or unconscious of the positives. These charges can scale from very subtle and small, say a 1 out of 10, all the way to overwhelming and debilitating 10 out of 10. You know, a subtle or smaller charge is one where we see only slightly more negatives than we see positives. An extreme charge is when we see 100% negatives and 0 positives, like extreme fears of heights or fears of public speaking. Every negative charge on the scale of every given event has its corresponding benefit. So when we find the positives in our past negatively charged events, they balance each other out. Then that event, the circumstance or the situation, becomes just an event, only a circumstance and a situation without the attached charge. Therefore, the glasses of fear are removed from that item, and so you can return to your confident, powerful, clear thinking and focused self. Now, what about rational and irrational fears? Are there such things as irrational and irrational fears? Well, the answer is yes and no. By definition, a fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain and/or threat. That means this unpleasant, unbalanced emotion of fear in the mind, and it's viewing the present and the future as a dangerous place. And so this is done through the glasses that are held over your eyes by these negative charges. Now, you might be thinking, what if the present or the future is actually a dangerous place? Well, with the law of polarity, there are only places, no dangerous places and no safe places. It's all a matter of perspective, right? A safe place for one is dangerous for another. A favela or shanty town in Brazil would be safe to the person living there, but it's most likely unsafe to a tourist. You know, the enchanted areas of the Amazon rainforest could be safe to a jaguar, but they would be rather unsafe for a human. Simple fact, they are both just places. Technically, all fears, except those two that we are born with, as I mentioned at the start of this video, are irrational because they occur in the mind as a negatively charged perception. So does that mean I should just stand there if someone's chasing me with a knife? Well, honestly, it depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to stay alive, then I'd highly recommend learning how to unarm someone with a knife, which, by the way, is a learnable skill. And if you learnt that, you would no longer be afraid of being attacked with a knife. And if you don't have that skill, you should probably just run. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to run out of fear. You do so because it's the best objective solution possible. So can you see the difference here? One is a fear-based and the other is a logical decision. So getting rid of fear is about confronting reality, both positive and negative, and only then making the most objective, clear, focused decisions that you can. Have you ever been scared or nervous about doing something and then afterwards you've realized that it wasn't all that bad? It wasn't as bad as you first thought. You know, naturally, you realized that there were more positives to this, and then it became easier to do the next time. Doing this, You won't suddenly lose all your judgments about what the optimal solution or the situation is by working through your fears. You won't suddenly start jumping off the side of a building or making irrational decisions without thinking about them first. This isn't about making you fearless. It's about bringing you back to your true self. The natural, clear-thinking you is the strong, confident, solution-driven, decision-making powerhouse that you are. Now, this process is designed to uncover more of that, not put you in some delusional, reckless, and fearless state. So let's go into the process. Now, I want you to think about a fear that you have, whether that be a fear of public speaking, a fear of being successful, a fear of failure, a fear of rejection, whatever it might be for you. Just think of a fear that you have that you're conscious of right now. And if you don't have one, I would highly recommend that you probably have a good look, because we all have fear, right? So pick a fear that you are conscious of, a fear that you know that you have right now. And I want you to just take a few deep breaths and close your eyes if it makes it easier to do so. And also, if it's safe, if you're driving, please do not close your eyes. And just take a couple of deep breaths. Close your eyes. And I want to ask, when was the first time you experienced this fear? On the count of 3, there might be an age that comes to you. I want to ask you, how old were you when you first experienced this fear? 1, 2, 3. And just trust the image or the event or the situation that comes up. Don't think about it. I want you to see, feel, and trust. You may be surprised what comes to you. Whatever comes up, it's exactly what needed to come up. Once you start recalling memories, you'll notice that they start coming back to you easier and easier. And if you haven't done a lot of this work before, you probably notice that it might be a bit slower for those memories to come up with, to start with. And so if you get stuck, just stop, take a deep breath, and focus on your breath coming in and out. And I want you to write a list of at least 5 times you've had this fear. And so if you feel like you need to close your eyes again and go back and find another time, try and make them, as when you're as young as possible. Try and get 5 times. Now, these could be a 10 out of 10 level, or they could be a 1 out of 10 level. It doesn't really matter. You just want to find 5. I want you to look at those 5 events, and each one individually. What are the upsides or the benefits to them happening? Those fears, those times, those situations. Because you have a fear because there's an unconscious perception that there's only positives and no negatives. Once you have your 5 events, I want you to look over them and find what are the upsides or the benefits to them happening. Now, the reason they are fears is because you're seeing more or only negatives and you're not seeing any positives. So the balance is out. You have a fear of this thing or this illusion, false evidence appearing real, and you are down here, comparing yourself. So to do this, we need to look at the benefits, to bring them together, the upsides, the benefits. And I want you to keep looking for upsides until you can truthfully say that it wasn't a negative event. Now, we just want to make it balanced. We're not going to go, yes, I'm so glad that these happened. We just want it to be neutral, to be evenly balanced, positives and negative. And at the time, these events might have been quite fearful, but as you look at them now through your logical adult eyes, you'll see them from a different perspective. All events are neutral and balanced. There is no such thing as a negative event without a positive event. They need to be balanced. There's no negative without positive. Now, as you go through this, you might even start to notice the patterns of why and how these triggers came about. The more you can discover about yourself, the better you will be able to experience peace and grace for your life. Look for the beauty in life's journey, and you will start to realize that every single event has been there to guide you towards your best life. They are along the way, they are not in the way. Now, if you get stuck, you might need to look for the upsides of the upsides of the upsides, the benefits of the benefits of the benefits. So list 10 upsides for each of those 5 events. The more, the merrier, until you can truthfully say it wasn't only negative and then you can see the balance. Now, let me know how you go with this in the comments below.